الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Continuing where we left off, inshallah, in the explanation of Aqeedatu Waasitiyyah, we reached the section which speaks about Nafyu Shariki Anillahi Ta'ala, negating from Allah that He has a partner or anyone who is equal to Him, or anyone who is worshipped besides Him. So we will mention the ayat which negate this and show the wahdaniyah of Allah, that Allah is one. وَقَوْلُهُ, so Allah said in the Quran, وَقُلِ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ الَّذِي لَمْ يَتَّخِذْ وَلَدًا وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ شَرِيكٌ فِي الْمُلْكِ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ وَلِيٌّ مِنَ الذُّلِّ وَكَبِّرْهُ تَكْبِيرًا. Alaykum as-salam. And this ayah, it's a very important ayah. Some narrations have mentioned it being called Ayatul Izz, the ayah, the verse of glory, of Allah's glory and His greatness. And it says, وَقُلِ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ, and say, all praises to Allah is belonging to Allah الَّذِي لَمْ يَتَّخِذْ وَلَدًا, the one who did not take for himself a child. Allah has no child. وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ شَرِيكٌ فِي الْمُلْكِ, and He had no partner alongside Him in His dominion, in His ownership. وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ وَلِيٌّ مِنَ الذُّلِّ, and He has no supporter out of weakness. He has no supporter from weakness, meaning out of weakness. وَكَبِّرْهُ تَكْبِيرًا, and glorify Him a great glorification. So in this ayah, it's affirming the tawheed of Allah, and it is firstly negating al-walad, that He has a child, that Allah does not have a child, as opposed to what the Christians say. They say وَقَالَ النَّصَارَى الْمَسِيحُ ابْنُ اللَّهِ, they say the Masih, Isa is the child of Allah. And also the mushrikeen of the Arabs, many of them would say that the angels are the daughters of Allah. So Allah is negating that and saying that لَمْ يَتَّخِذْ وَلَدًا, Allah has no child. وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ شَرِيكٌ فِي الْمُلْكِ, and no one is a partner alongside Allah in His mulk, in His ownership. And this shows that what Allah has made from His khasa'is, things which are specific to Him, in terms of for example, al-khalq wa rizq, creating and sustaining, providing, and tadbir, and controlling and maintaining the universe. All of this is something which is specific to Allah, and there can be no one who is a partner to Allah in this. Yet you have some groups, some of the extreme Rafidah, for example, extreme Shia, and some of the extreme Sufiya, who say that, for example, Ahlul Bayt, they can control the universe, or they can control things on an atomic level, and they can create, and other than that. And some Sufi also say such things about the awliya, that they say that the awliya, that those beloved slaves of Allah, that they have tasarruf al-ulwi, that they have control over the matters of the universe, of the sky and the planets and stars and things like that. And this, of course, a belief which is shirk. It is one which is associated to a partner with Allah, because Allah said, لَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ شَرِيكٌ فِي الْمُلْكِ, there is no one who is a partner alongside Allah in His ownership, in His dominion. But they might say, okay, we don't say that these people are independent in their abilities, rather Allah has made them have these abilities, that they can make it rain and cause the plants to grow, and other than that. We would say this is still affirming a partner alongside Allah. For example, if you had a car and you own this car, then you went to Muhammad and you said, Muhammad, I'm going to give you the key to the car, and you can use it however you want. You want to buy it, you want to sell it, drive it, park it, do whatever you want. Yeah, I have no problem with that. The reality of this is that you've made him a partner with you in ownership of this car, even if you are the one who made him a partial owner. So it's not sufficient for a person to say these awliya or the Ahlul Bayt, that Ali radiallahu anhu, Hussein radiallahu anhu, they are doing tasarruf, and they are controlling the major issues of the universe, and this is okay, and this isn't shirk because you believe that Allah gave him this ability. No, we would say that Allah has mentioned that لَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ شَرِيكٌ فِي الْمُلْكِ, that Allah has not made anyone a partner with Him in those things which are khasa'is, which are specific to Allah, min khasa'is Allah, those things which Allah has mentioned to specifically be for Him in the Quran. Like says, قُلْ لِمَنِ الْأَرْضُ وَمَنْ فِيهَا إِن كُنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ, say, for who is the earth and what is in it. And says, قُلْ مَنْ بِيَدِهِ مَلَكُوتُ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ وَهُوَ يُجِيرُ وَلَا يُجَارُ عَلَيْهِ. And who is the one who in his under his dominion is all things, and other than them, and other ayat, for example, Allah says in the Quran, وَلَئِنْ سَأَلْتَهُمْ مَنْ خَلَقَهُمْ لَيَقُولُونَ اللَّهُ. And if you ask them who created them, they will say Allah. So this is showing that certain things are specific to Allah, having complete control, giving life and death, and other than that, giving rizq, providing, and things like that. These things are specific to Allah. It's not possible for anyone from the creations to be associated with Him in these things. And it says, وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ وَلِيٌّ مِّنَ الذُّلِّ. And also, Allah does not need any supporter out of weakness. Allah is Aziz, as we mentioned before. So He is not needing of anyone else. And He is Al-Hayy Al-Qayyum. And we said from the meanings of Al-Qayyum is Al-Qaim bi-nafsihi, meaning the one who does not need the help of anyone and is not reliant upon anyone. And you see the negation of Al-Wali here, of Allah having allies, supporters. It is Waliyyun min al-dhul, yani allyship out of weakness, out of need. This is the allyship which has been rejected, that Allah is not in need of anyone to support Him. And as I mentioned there, وَهُوَ يُجِيرُ وَلَا يُجَارُ عَلَيْهِ. Allah, He's the one who protects, and no one is protected from Allah. So the wilaya which is being negated here is wilaya min al-dhul, out of weakness. As for general wilaya, mutlaq al-wilaya, then this has been affirmed in the Quran. أَلَا إِنَّ أَوْلِيَاءَ اللَّهِ لَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Indeed, the allies of Allah, there is no fear upon them, and they will not be sad. They will not be grief-struck. So wilaya, allyship in that meaning, that's been affirmed in the Quran. إِن تَنْصُرُ اللَّهِ يَنْصُرْكُمْ وَيُثَبِّتْ أَقْدَامَكُمْ. If you give victory for Allah, if you support the religion of Allah, then Allah will support you as well. So this form of wilaya is something which has been affirmed in the Quran Sunnah, but that's not out of Allah needing His ibad, His slaves. Rather, it's out of takreem, honoring them, and Allah giving them a fadila, a blessing and a virtue which they wouldn't have otherwise. The next ayah says, يُسَبِّحُ لِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَهُ الْمُلْكُ وَلَهُ الْحَمْدُ وَهُوَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. It says everything which is all that which is in the samawat wal ard, in the heavens and the earth, يُسَبِّحُ لِلَّهِ. They glorify Allah, they exalt Allah, they do tasbih of Allah. And we already mentioned before that tasbih, it is tanzihullah. It is to glorify, exalt Allah from any sort of defect and any sort of partner or any other thing which is not suitable for Allah. So this is saying that everything in the heavens and earth does tasbih of Allah and remembers Allah and does glorification of Allah. And it says, يُسَبِّحُ لِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَهُ الْحَمْدُ لَهُ الْمُلْكُ وَلَهُ الْحَمْدُ. He has, for Allah is al-mulk, the dominion, and for Him is also al-hamd, all praise. And this al-mulk and al-hamd, it is lil-istighraq, alif and lam, is al-istighraqiyya, meaning all of the mulk, all of the dominion and ownership is for Allah, and all of al-hamd, all praises for Allah. وَهُوَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. And He is capable of all things. And the tasbih done by the creation, so some of it we know how it is, just as how the humans do tasbih with our tongues and with our hearts, they remember Allah, glorify Him. As for other than that, from the animals and things like that, then they also have tasbih haqiqi, an actual glorification. They actually exalt Allah, but in a way which we do not comprehend. وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ وَلَكِنْ لَا تَفْقَهُونَ تَسْبِيحَهُمْ. As mentioned in the Quran, there's nothing except that it exalts Allah. وَلَكِنْ لَا تَفْقَهُونَ تَسْبِيحَهُمْ. But rather, you do not understand, you do not comprehend the exaltation, how they exalt Allah and how they remember Allah. And this is really beneficial also when discussing the sifat for Allah. So if there are things about the creation which we don't even comprehend, but it's been affirmed clearly in the Quran and Sunnah that it happens, like this tasbih. And also, for example, the Prophet said in the hadith, إِنِّي لَأَعْرِفُ حَجَرًا فِي مَكَّةَ كَانَ يُسَلِّمُ عَلَيْهِ. The Prophet said, I know a stone in Mecca which used to give salam upon me, used to send salutations upon me. So if there are things which we can't even comprehend from the khalq, from the creation, such as how they can do tasbih, they can do dhikr of Allah, then how can we possibly try to understand how Allah is and how His attributes are? And it says, وقوله, the next ayah, تبارك الذي نزل الفرقان على عبده ليكون للعالمين نذيرا الذي له ملك السماوات والأرض ولم يتخذ ولدا ولم يكن له شريك في الملك وخلق كل شيء فقدره تقديرا. Blessed is الذي نزل القرآن, the one who sent down the Quran. And tabaraka, when you say tabarak Allah, it means Allah is yani, the one of who has all blessings. All blessings is from Allah. And it also means yani ta'ala wa ta'azzama and Allah He is yani, great, and He is yani, above all other things in greatness, and also in terms of yani, His qudra and His ilm and all that from His sifat. As for if we say barakallah, like barakallahu feek or barakallahu fulanan, that means Allah gives blessings. Barakahu meaning to bless something. But as for tabaraka, it's that Allah Himself is blessed, is great. الذي نزل الفرقان على عبده, the one who sent down al-furqan, the Quran, على عبده, upon his servant, upon the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. And al-furqan, it is a name from the names of the Quran, and it means the one which separates. الذي يفرق بين الحق والباطل. Al-furqan is the one which separates and clarifies between that which is true and that which is falsehood. Comes from the word farq. Farq means difference, and it differentiates and it separates and it clarifies that which is true and that which is false. And the ayah says نزل الفرقان, Allah sent down the Quran, sent down the Furqan. And this is also affirming the highness of Allah and His ulu, that He is above all things. And it says ليكون للعالمين نذيرا, Allah sent down the Quran so that upon His servant, upon His slave Muhammad ﷺ, so that he can be a warner to al-alamin, to the creation, all of them. Allah sent down the Prophet ﷺ, sent the prophets generally speaking, and also sent down specifically the Quran upon our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, so that he can warn the people and guide them towards the religion which Allah has ordained upon them. And this liyakuna is showing that this is the hikmah, this is the wisdom in why Allah has done this. And this sort of wording, it shows that Allah does actions out of hikmah, out of wisdom, not out of no reason. It says in the Quran also, وما خلقنا السماوات والأرض وما خلقنا السماوات والأرض وما بينهما لاعبا ما خلقناهما إلا بالحق ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون. And we have not created the heavens and the earth as play, as abath, as out of uselessness, out of no reason. ما خلقناهما إلا بالحق. We have not created them except for truth, for a true reason which Allah knows, which is that He has explained to us that وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون. I have not created mankind and jinn except to worship me. وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا أَنِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ. We have sent in every nation a prophet for him to say to them, اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاشْفَ اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ, and leave off all false deities, anything which is worshipped besides Allah. So it says, الَّذِي لَهُ مُلْكُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. He is the one, Allah is the one. For Him is مُلْكُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, the dominion and the ownership of the heavens and the earth. وَلَمْ يَتَّخِذْ وَلَدًا, and Allah did not take a child, He does not have a child. وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ شَرِيكٌ فِي الْمُلْكِ, and He does not have any partner with Him in His ownership, in His mulk, in His dominion. وَخَلَقَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ فَقَدَّرَهُ تَقْدِيرًا, and He created all things, then فَقَدَّرَهُ, He made it specific, He measured it, and He ordained for it what will be allocated for it, everything. This is al-qadr, which we spoke about before and we'll speak about later again. Allah Azza wa Jal, He wrote for everything how long they will live, how long every creature will live, what will their rizq be, where will they die, how will they live, will they be فَمِنْهُ شَقِيٌّ وَسَعِيدٌ, will they be someone who is successful, someone who does righteousness, or will they be someone who is a person who is in who is in yani shaqa, out of shaqa means that they are in a state of not sadness, but out of helplessness and misguidance. So Allah has written that for every single creation which He has created. And again, this ayah is also affirming that Allah He is one in His creation. He says, وَخَلَقَ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. Allah is the one who created all things. Everything which is created, it is the creation of Allah. There cannot be anyone who creates besides Allah. And also, it's affirming that Allah He is the one who owns all things and controls all things, and He has no partner in that, like we mentioned in the previous ayah. The next ayah says, وَقَوْلُهُ مَا اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ مِنْ وَلَدٍ وَمَا كَانَ مَعَهُ مِنْ إِلَهٍ إِذًا لَذَهَبَ كُلُّ إِلَهٍ بِمَا خَلَقَ وَلَا عَلَى بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ سُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ عَمَّا يَصِفُونَ عَالِمِ الْغَيْبِ وَالشَّهَادَةِ فَتَعَالَى عَمَّا يُشْرِكُونَ. مَا اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ مِنْ وَلَدٍ. Allah did not take a child. Allah has no child. And again, you see all of these ayat repeatedly negating for Allah to have a child. And this is because it's a common belief amongst people of shirk, polytheism, and also amongst the Christians and other than them. And we already mentioned, I think the first or second lessons, why affirming a child is affirming deficiency for Allah. Allah is not in need of a child, nor is it possible for there to be anything which is like Allah. And the child is like their parent, like their father. They're from the same jins, the same type. And there's nothing like Allah. And it says, وَمَا كَانَ مَعَهُ مِنْ إِلَهٍ. And there is no other deity alongside Allah. إِذَا لَذَهَبَ كُلُّ إِلَهٍ بِمَا خَلَقٍ. If there was to be another deity alongside Allah, then each deity, each creator would separate itself with what it's created. Each one would, become separate with its own creation, so the other one does not overpower them in their dominion. So if there were two creators, then each one would have a separate creation trying to, protect it from the other one trying to overpower them. وَلَا عَلَى بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. And the different creators would try to overpower one another. So this is an evidence which is showing that Allah, He is the only creator, and He's the only Lord and the only deity, because we see that the universe is organized and everything is muntazim, everything is in its correct place. And as it says in the Quran, مَا تَرَى فِي خَلْقِ الرَّحْمَنِ مِنْ تَفَاوُتٍ. You don't see in the creation of Allah any tafawut, levels where one thing is, this thing, mashallah, it's perfect creation, but here, no, there's a mistake here. No, Allah's creation is all perfect, and that shows that He's the creator of it all. If there were different creators, then it would not have been organized like this. Subhanallah amma yasifun. Glory be to Allah, exalted is He from what they say, from what they claim about Allah, claiming that He has a child, or claiming that there are other deities alongside Him. Alim al-ghayb wa shahada. He is Alim al-ghayb, the one who knows the unseen, wa shahada, and the seen. Allah knows everything which is seen and that which is unseen. And we already spoke about al-ghayb before. What is the belief of Ahl Sunnah regarding al-ghayb? فَتَعَالَ عَمَّا يُشْرِكُونَ. So He is above and He is greater than what they associate with Him. Allah is exalted from what they associate with Him. And this ayah, it's possible to discuss it in much more detail, and there's a evidence which is extracted from this ayah, which the people in the books of Aqeedatu, they mention, called dalilu tamanu'. And dalilu tamanu' means the evidence of prevention, meaning if there was more than one creator, then they would prevent each other from being able to create other than that. It's a very long dalil, and it's a correct evidence. Ibn Taymiyyah also mentions it in Sharh al-Asfahani, and it's in its essence extracted from this ayah. But inshallah, perhaps we'll mention it in some other time. Not now, because it takes a while to explain. But the khulasa, the natija, the result of that evidence is that you can prove through rational reasoning why Allah can be the only creator and there cannot be any creator alongside Him. So if anyone's interested in looking that up and trying to do more research in that, then it's called Dalil at-Tamanu', and you can see it in Sharh al-Asfahaniyyah by Ibn Taymiyyah. The next ayah says, فَلَا تَضْرِبُوا لِلَّهِ الْأَمْثَالِ. Also in the previous ayah, we also learned from this ayah, إِذَا لَذَهَبَ كُلُّ إِلَهٍ بِمَا خَلَقٍ, that Allah has knowledge of the things which are impossible. There being other creations alongside Allah is something which is impossible. But despite that, Allah knows how it would be, even if that thing was to occur, even though it is something which is not possible. That's why He said, Allah mentioned that if there was to be other creators alongside Allah, each one would separate with its own creation and try to overpower one another. And it says, فَلَا تَضْرِبُوا لِلَّهِ الْأَمْثَالِ, and do not do not give examples and make analogies about Allah or for Allah. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَعْلَمُ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Indeed, Allah Jal, He knows whilst you do not know. And this is negating al-qiyas fi haqqillah, that you try making analogies about Allah Jal. If Allah Jal is like this, then He must be like this. Why? Because we see that the way the creation are, when they are like this, they are like that. If Allah Jal was to be above the creation, then that must mean He's a body. That's how some of the groups say, the mutakallimin. Why? Because they say everything which can be seen, or everything which is in a direction, or everything which can be sensed, then this is something which is a body. Okay, where did you get this from? What makes you say that that is the case if you affirm highness for Allah Jal? They'll say, because that's what every highness only applies to bodies. They'll say, فَلَا تَضْرِبُوا اللَّهِ الْأَمْثَالِ. Do not give analogies about Allah. Do not make comparisons in regards to Allah Jal. And the type of comparison here which is being negated, al-qiyas here, analogy, it is two types. Qiyas, analogies are three types. Qiyas al-shumul, and qiyas al-tamthil, and qiyas al-awla. So the first one, qiyas al-shumul, the encompassing analogy. For example, if you were to say every human breathes, so then you find a human, Muhammad, and you already know that he breathes. Why? Because he's a human, so he came under the general type and the general jins, which is humankind. So this type of qiyas, this type of analogy is called qiyas al-shumul. And this is something which we cannot apply to Allah Jal, because Allah Jal is not like the creation, and there's nothing which is like Allah Jal. And the second type is qiyas al-tamthil, that you say X is like Y. You say, for example, Muhammad is like Zayd, because they're both humans. So if Muhammad breathes, then Zayd must also breathe. This type of comparison is called qiyas al-tamthil. And it also applies to the one which I mentioned before. If a person says, if Allah Jal is above the creation, that must mean He's a body. This sort of qiyas, this sort of analogy is called qiyas al-tamthil. And comparison. It is likening one thing to another. And this is, of course, also not applicable when speaking about Allah Jal. That's why it says, فَلَا تَضْرِبُوا لِلَّهِ الْأَمْثَالِ. These two types are the ones which are negated. There's a third type of qiyas analogy which is called qiyas al-awla, or qiyas al-awlawiyah. That if you say, for example, if you say that a child can pick up a rock, so then an adult must be also able to pick up a rock, because he is more capable than the child is. He is more deserving of this ruling or this attribute. This sort of qiyas, it can be applicable to Allah Jal. It says, وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى. And for Allah Jal is the highest and greatest example. And so if we say, for example, we know that humans have knowledge, and Allah Jal, He is more deserving of knowledge, because this is a perfection. So we affirm for Allah Jal that He has knowledge beyond even that of the knowledge of humans. Then this sort of qiyas is something which is permissible when applied correctly. And that's shown by the ayah, وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى. And for Allah Jal is the greatest example. And it's also shown by the end of this ayah, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَعْلَمُ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Allah knows whilst you do not know. So if we say that the humans do not have full knowledge, أَنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, يعني علما تاما, you don't have knowledge of all matters, then we say that Allah Jal is more deserving than humans to have knowledge of all matters. So it's affirming something which is la'iq, which is suitable when speaking about Allah, and something which is a perfection for Allah, which the creation might have something which is of lesser level and of lesser perfection, such as the creation having knowledge and Allah having greater knowledge than them, and the creation having some abilities, some qudra, and Allah being all capable and having all complete strength. Then the next ayah says, قل إنما حرم ربي الفواحش ما ظهر منها وما بطن والإثم والبغي بغير الحق وأن تشركوا بالله ما لم ينزل به سلطانا وأن تقولوا على الله ما لا تعلمون. Say, Ya Muhammad alayhi salatu, say to them, إنما حرم ربي الفواحش. My Lord has only prohibited al-fawahish, those things which are vile, which are degenerate, such as zina, such as liwat, homosexuality, and things like these, which are things which are fahisha, which are degeneracy, and actions which are vile, disgusting actions. فالله حرم, He has forbidden, my Lord has forbidden الفواحش ما ظهر منها وما بطن, those which are apparent and those which are hidden, whether it's done in secret, whether it's done openly. والإثم والبغي بغير الحق, and Allah has forbidden al-ithm, sins, for you to disobey Allah in that which He commands. والبغي بغير الحق, and that you transgress without right. You take someone's wealth, you take someone's life, you harm someone without any right to do so, then Allah has forbidden this as well. وأن تشركوا بالله ما لم ينزل به سلطانا, and for you to associate with Allah a partner which He has not legislated for you to do so. Allah has not legislated for us to worship other than Him, or for us to direct our actions of glorification and worship to other than Him. وأن تقولوا على الله ما لا تعلمون, and for you to say about Allah that which you have no knowledge of. Allah has forbidden all of these things. And the thing which concerns us regarding this section, it is that Allah says, وَأَن تُشْرِكُوا بِاللَّهِ مَا لَمْ يَنزِلْ بِهِ سُلْطَانًا, for you to associate a partner with Allah. That is something which is أكبر الكبائر. As mentioned, the hadith, the Prophet was asked, مَا أَعْظَمُ ذَنْبٍ, what is the greatest sin? And he said, أَن تَجْعَلَ لِلَّهِ نِدًّا وَهُوَ خَلَقَكَ, for you to make for Allah an equal in glorification and worship, whilst He is the one who created you. Allah, He is the one who created you, so He's the one who is deserving of your worship and of your obedience, not anyone else. So for you to associate someone with Allah in such a matter and direct your glorification and worship to other than Him, then this is أعظم ذنب, the greatest of sins. Some of the ulama mentioned that this ayah, it's mentioning these sins in order. Yani what's bad, then what's worse, until you get to the worst. So the last thing which is mentioned here is أن تقولوا على الله ما لا تعلمون, for you to say about Allah that which you have no knowledge of. So a person might say, isn't that less of a sin than shirk? Isn't shirk the worst sin? We know that shirk is the worst sin, but speaking about Allah and saying about Him things which you have no knowledge of, that includes shirk and includes other sins as well, apparent from it and that which is hidden. وَالْإِثْمَ وَالْبَغْيِ, and He has forbidden sinning, disobedience. وَالْبَغْيِ بِغَيْرِ الْحَقِّ, and transgressing without right. وَأَن تُشْرِكُوا بِاللَّهِ مَا لَمْ يُنَزِّلْ بِهِ سُلْطَانًا, and for you to make a partner with Allah in that which He has not sent down any right to do so. Sultan here means right. Allah has not sent down any hujjah or any dalil to permit such a thing. وَأَن تَقُولُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, and for you to say about Allah that which you have no knowledge of. And this ayah is showing that what Allah forbids, it is لِمَصْلَحَةِ النَّاسِ, it is in the benefit of the people. Allah doesn't forbid or obligate things without any reason. It's not abath. As we mentioned, this is all relating back to the hikmah. And the hikmah of Allah is hikmah kawniyya and hikmah shar'iyyah. His wisdom, Allah's wisdom, is in terms of al-kawn, the universe, what happens in it, and also in terms of His law, and in terms of His religion. What Allah has legislated for mankind, it's in their best interest. And it's something which is muwafiq lil-aqli wal-fitrah, something which is in line with the intellect and the fitrah. What Allah has created every person to have this innate belief, or this innate feeling that you feel, that you know that this thing is something which is bad. This inherent morality created in mankind, this is in line with what Allah has revealed in His shara. Like it says in the Quran, وَلَكُمْ فِي الْقِصَاصِ حَيَاةٌ, in retaliation, punishment through retaliation, qisas, there is life for you. Meaning if one person kills another person, and then they are to be executed if the family of the deceased want that, for you in this system of al-qisas there is life. Because by making this punishment so severe that if you kill, you'll be killed. If you cut off someone's arm, your arm will be cut off, and so on. Then a person will think twice before doing that action. They will not transgress on anyone else, because they know that the harm will come back to them. And so like that in every ruling of the shar, there is great wisdom, some which we may know and some which we may not know. And there's also the mas'ala of at-tahsin wa taqbih, if anyone wants to research that as well. At-tahsin wa taqbih, some things are inherent. Allah has created something as being inherently good and inherently evil. Allah has created them as this, and this is something which we know by aql, by our intellect. So we know, even if the revelation didn't come, we would know that, for example, oppression is something which is bad, lying is something which is bad, generosity is something which is good. These things Allah has made it known to us by our intellects to be good and evil. But in terms of punishment, a person is not punished or rewarded for, or a person is not punished specifically for doing such a thing until the revelation comes. So if a person, for example, used to commit zina, fornicate, before the Quran came to them, before the revelation came to them, before this was, revealed to be something which is haram. This sin is known inherently to be something which is evil, but the punishment, it only applies once the revelation has came. And there's other groups in this Aqeedah which have deviated. Those who say at-tahsin wa taqbih are shar'i only, that things being good or evil are only based on what the deen says. Meaning, if it's possible for the deen to come, for Allah to reveal that oppression is good, or that fornication is good, or that lying is good. No, we would say that Allah has inherently created these things to be good or evil, and the revelation, it affirms that this thing is good and this thing is evil. Not that it's that whatever the Shara says, it is what makes the thing good or evil. These things are inherently good or evil based on how Allah has created them, but the legislation, the revelation clarifies to us what is good and what is evil. The next section is speak about istiwa Allahi ala arshihi, ithbatu istiwa illah, affirming the rising of Allah on His throne. It says, وَقَوْلُ Allah said in the Quran, الرحمن على العرش استوى في سبعة مواضع. Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned in 7 places in the Quran, الرحمن, the most merciful, على العرش استوى, upon His throne He rose. And al-istiwa, it is from the actions of Allah. It's min sifat al-af'al, min sifat al-fi'liyah. It is from those actions which Allah does, such as we mentioned before, al-maji, coming on the Day of Judgment, such as al-nuzul, descending, which we'll mention later. Also such as things like kalam, speaking. These are actions of Allah, sifat fi'liyah. And al-istiwa, it is a specific type of ulu. So we have ulu am and ulu khas. General highness of Allah. Allah is above all creations. And we're talking about al-ulu al-dhati. Allah Himself, His existence is above all creation. That's al-ulu al-am, general highness. And there's ulu khas, a specific highness of Allah, that He is above the throne in a specific way, which is His istiwa. And we'll speak about it in more detail once we mention the ayat, inshallah. It says, Ar-Rahmanu ala arshi istawa. Allah said in the Quran that the most merciful, meaning Allah, He rose above the throne. And this is mentioned in 7 places in the Quran. This first one was in Surah Taha. And it was also mentioned in Surah Al-A'raf. And then it also says in the Quran, إِنَّ رَبَّكُمُ اللَّهُ الَّذِي خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ فِي سِتَّةِ أَيَّامٍ ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى عَلَى الْعَرْشِ. Indeed, your Lord is Allah, the one who created the heavens and earth in sittati ayyam, in 6 days. ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى عَلَى الْعَرْشِ. Then He rose above the throne. So Allah created the heavens and the earth in 6 days. And وَمَا مَسَّنَا مِن لُغَبٍ, as it says in the Quran, Allah did not become tired. This is not like how the Jews and Christians say that Allah created the heavens and earth in 6 days and then on the 7th day He rested. No. And it says in the Quran, وَمَا مَسَّنَا مِن لُغُوبٍ. And Allah did not become tired from creating the heavens and earth. Rather, Allah could have created it in 1 second. But He created it in 6 days so that He can show to this creation His itqan, His perfection in creation, and His qudra. Seeing how something is developed and made step by step gives you more appreciation of it than for you to just have it handed to you on a platter. So Allah created the heavens and earth in 6 days for it to be a sign and a reminder for us. And as for it being 6 days, there's khilaf between the ulama. Is it 6 days, meaning 6 times 24 hours, or are these days a different amount? There's khilaf because it says in the Quran also, وَإِنَّ يَوْمًا عِنْدَ رَبِّكَ كَأَلْفِ سَنَةٍ مِمَّا تَعُدُّونَ. And indeed a day with your Lord is like 1,000 years from what you count. So it's not necessarily 6 days in terms of 6 times 24 hours. Rather, if you were to take that other ayah to be applying here as well, it would be 6,000 years. But the Day of Judgment is also 50,000 years long, and it's 1 day, and so on. So specifying the exact amount of time, it's not something which we know, but we say, as the Quran has mentioned, it's 6 days. Then it says, ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى عَلَى الْعَرْشِ. Then after Allah created the heavens and earth, He rose above the throne. And it says in the next ayah, إن ربكم الله الذي خلق السماوات والأرض في ستة أيام ثم استوى على العرش. This is again saying the same thing. Indeed, your Lord is Allah, the one who created the heavens and the earth in 6 days. Then He rose above the throne. And it says another ayah, الله الذي رفع السماوات بغير عمد ترونها ثم استوى على العرش. Allah is the one who lifted and raised the skies, the samawat, the heavens and the sky, بغير عمد ترونها, with no pillars which you see. ثم استوى على العرش. Then Allah did istiwa, then He rose above the throne. So it says that Allah lifted up the heavens, but the heavens are above the earth without any pillars. And there's khilaf between the ulama. What is the meaning of بغير عمد ترونها? Without any pillars which you see. So some said it means that the heavens are lifted with pillars, but these are pillars which we can't see, which we can't sense. Based on the end of the ayah saying ترونها عمد ترونها, that there's no pillars which you see. And some say no, this ayah is saying that Allah has raised the heavens above the earth, and there's nothing holding the heavens up except for Allah, of course, Himself, but there's no pillar for it. Allahu alam. Then it says ثم استوى على العرش. Then after Allah raised the heavens above the earth, He did istiwa, He rose above the throne. It says in the next ayah, الرحمن على العرش استوى. Also it says in the Quran that, as you mentioned before, the most merciful rose above the throne. Next ayah says ثم استوى على العرش الرحمن فاسأل به خبيرا. That's the end of the ayah. Then He rose above the throne. الرحمن, He is the most merciful. فاسأل به خبيرا. Ask those who know, who have knowledge about Him. Ask the prophets, ask the people of knowledge, so that they inform you about Allah. The next ayah says الله الذي خلق السماوات والأرض وما بينهما في ستة أيام ثم استوى على العرش. Allah is the one who created the heavens and earth and that which is in between them in 6 days. Then He rose above the throne. And the last one it says هو الذي خلق السماوات والأرض في ستة أيام ثم استوى على العرش. He is the one, Allah is the one who created the heavens and earth in 6 days. Then He rose above the throne. All of these ayat are mentioning the same thing, generally speaking, that Allah He created the heavens and earth and then He rose above the throne. And what it's also showing is that this is an action of Allah, that it's a specific action which He does when He wills. Allah rose above the throne after creating the heavens and earth. So this is an action which He did at His time, at specific time, and not that it's something which is always the case, meaning that Allah rose above the throne after having not risen above the throne, despite being above all creation. So there's no contradiction here between al-ulu al-khas and al-ulu al-am, general highness and specific highness. Allah was above the creation at all times, and it's not possible for Allah to not be above the creation, because Allah does not enter into the creation, nor does the creation enter into Him, as you mentioned when explaining the name As-Samad. Nothing enters in Allah, nothing from Allah enters into the creation. So Allah is always above the creation. But as for the specific rising on the throne, that specifically happens when Allah wills. It's an action. So al-ulu, it's sifat, it's from the sifat dhatiyah, from the attributes of Allah's essence, that He is alin, that He is above all things. As for al-istiwa, rising, this is min sifat al-fi'liyah, from the actions of Allah, which He does when He wills. And it doesn't mean that Allah was below the arsh or on the same level and then He rose above it. No, that's how the rising of the humans of creation is. As for Allah's rising, it's in a way which we do not know. And that's why when Imam Malik was asked, how is the istiwa? كيف استوى? He said, al-istiwa ma'lum. What istiwa is? It's known. Something which is known. In the Arabic language, it's something which is clear. Well, kayfu majhul. As for how it is, it's unknown. It's not like the rising of the creation, because when the creation rises above something, it would suggest that you were below it, then you rose above it. But as for the istiwa of Allah, it's not in such a way, because He is above all things and has always been above all things. وَالْإِيمَانُ بِهِ wajib, and believing in it is obligatory. It's not permissible for anyone to deny it, since it's been mentioned in the Quran, as we mentioned here, 7 places. وَالسُّؤَالُ عَنْهُ بِدْعَةٌ, and asking about its howness, its meaning, seeking further explanation beyond what has been mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah, then this is a misguidance, this is an innovation. And the Salaf, they explained the word istiwa with 4 meanings, or some say 6 meanings, other words to explain it. So if you go to the tafsir, for example, tafsir al-Tabari, when you come to this ayah, ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى عَلَى الْعَرْشِ الرَّحْمَنُ عَلَى الْعَرْشِ اسْتَوَى, you'll see that it's mentioned from the Salaf, different words to explain this. So some said, عَلَى الْعَرْشِ, he was above the throne. And some said, صَعِدَ, he rose above the arsh. And others say, ارتفع, which also means he rose above the arsh, Allah's throne. And some said, استقر, that Allah established himself above the throne. And this is the only one which gives an extra meaning beyond just rising. And it shows that al-istiwa is a specific type of ulu, highness, which has the meaning of establishment. Allah established himself above the throne in a way which we do not know of. And it's not that Allah is in need of the throne, rather this is just showing Allah's qudra, his ability, and also showing the greatness of the throne. But it's not that Allah is in need of the throne, nor is it that the throne encompasses Allah or anything like that, because Allah is greater than all things. Huwa al-Akbar. We say Allahu Akbar, Allah is the most great, and He's not in need of anything from the creation. And this last word, istaqara, it's been narrated from Ibn Abbas that he explained al-istiwa to mean istaqara. And another point to make is that the arsh, the throne of Allah, it is a specific creation of Allah, and it is the biggest of all creations in terms of grandness. Then the arsh, it is much greater and much bigger than everything else, than the heavens and the earth. As we mentioned in the previous lesson, that the heavens and the earth, compared to the kursi, it is like the size of a ring in the desert, and the kursi compared to the arsh, it is like the size of a ring in a desert. And another hadith mentions that that the Prophet ﷺ, he explained that the arsh is above the heavens like a qubba, like a dome above all of the heavens and the earth. And we also know from the ayat in the Quran and the ahadith that there are angels who hold the throne of Allah. They hold the throne of Allah. And Allah is not in need of His throne, and nor is He in need of the angels, but rather Allah does as He wills. The next section will speak about إثبات علو الله على مخلوقاته, affirming the highness of Allah over the creation. So here we're going to be speaking about al-ulu al-am, general highness of Allah. And uluullah, the highness of Allah is 3 types. Ulu al-dhat, Allah's self being above the creation, His essence, and this is the one which there's back and forth with. When Ahl Sunnah, we affirm this ulu for Allah, whereas some misguided sects don't affirm it. As for the second and third type, no one rejects it. The second type of ulu, of highness of Allah, is ulu al-qahr, that Allah is above all things in terms of control and the power. Allah's power is above all things. And the third is ulu al-qadr, or ulu al-sharaf. Allah's His attributes and His level is greater than all things. Allah is greater than all things in terms of His names and attributes, in terms of His perfection as opposed to the creation and so on. So these ayat are affirming ulu, highness of Allah, and the evidences for affirming the ulu of Allah, the highness of Allah, being above the creation, are many. Ibn al-Qayyim mentions in his Nuniyah that we have over 100, but rather over 200 evidences for affirming the highness of Allah. And he also mentions, I think in Sawa'iq al-Mursala, or a different book, that he could mention 1,000 evidences from the Quran and Sunnah and from aql, intellect, to show that Allah is above the creation. But generally, these sort of evidences, they come down to 21 different types. And he mentioned all 21 types in his Nuniyah. So we mentioned some of them. He says, وَقَوْلُ, Allah said in the Quran, يَا عِيسَى إِنِّي مُتْوَفِّيكَ وَرَافِعُكَ إِلَيَّ. Ya Isa, O Isa alayhi salam, إِنِّي مُتْوَفِّيكَ, I will make you pass away. وَرَافِعُكَ إِلَيَّ, and I will rise you up to me. Allah will rise up, will take Isa alayhi salam up to the heavens, and He did. As for mutawaffika, Allah will make you pass away, there's 2 opinions. Is this talking about Allah will make Isa alayhi salam die, or is it talking about that Allah will put him in a trance, in a sleep, which he was lifted in? Because we know that Isa alayhi salam did not die on the cross. وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ وَلَكِنْ شُبِّهَ لَهُمْ. that when they said, إِنَّا قَتَلْنَا الْمَسِيحَ عِيسَى بْنَ مَرْيَمَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ. The Jews, they said that we killed Isa ibn Maryam, Jesus the son of Mary, Rasulullah, the Prophet of Allah. And says after that, وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ. They did not kill him, nor did they crucify him. وَلَكِنْ شُبِّهَ لَهُمْ. Rather, it was likened to him. Someone else was taken, one of the apostles and the followers of Isa al-Islam, was made to look like Isa. And Allah just sent down a light from the sky upon him, and he started looking exactly like how Isa al-Islam looked. And then Allah took up Isa al-Islam into the heavens. And so, some said that mutawaffika, I will make you pass away. It means that he was put in a trance, in a sleep, and then Allah lifted him up into the heavens, where he is still alive until he will come towards the end of times to kill Ad-Dajjal, Al-Masih Ad-Dajjal, the false Messiah. Another opinion is that what al-mutawaffika, what it means here by inni mutawaffika, I will make you pass away, it's that Allah will make him die. But it's not dying now, rather it will be dying towards the end of times, after he has killed Al-Masih Ad-Dajjal, and after Ya'juj and Ma'juj come and all of those events happen, then he will die as how every other person will die. Kull nafsin dha'iqatul maut. Every soul will taste death. Then okay, why is it saying that I will make you pass away and rise you up? Mujahid, the student of Ibn Abbas, he said that there's taqdeem and ta'khir here. The ordering is not showing that he will pass away first, then he will be risen. Rather, it's that he was risen up and then he will pass away after that. And the waw in the Arabic language, it doesn't necessitate order. If you say Muhammad and Zayd came, Ja'a Zaydun wa Muhammad, it just shows that both of them came. It doesn't necessarily mean that one came before the other. It doesn't necessarily mean that Muhammad came before Zayd. As opposed to if you were to say Ja'a Muhammadun thumma Zayd, or Ja'a Muhammadun fa Zayd. Muhammad came then Zayd. That would show ordering. But when it's just waw, it doesn't necessitate ordering. But in any case, what consensus here is that he is affirming, Allah is affirming His ulu, His highness. He's saying وَرَافِعُكَ إِلَيْهِ, that he will be risen up towards Allah, ilayhi, to him. And this is showing that Allah is above the creation. And the next ayah, بَرَفَعَهُ اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِ, but rather Allah rose him up to him. Again talking about Isa alayhi salam. It's in the same ayah, وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ وَلَكِنْ شُبِّهَ لَهُمْ وَإِن مِّنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ إِلَّا لَيُؤْمِنُونَ بِهِ قَبْلَ مَوْتِهِ. No, not that. But before that, in the same surah, Surah An-Nisa, it mentions that بَرَفَعَهُ اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِ, that Allah took him up to him. And the next ayah says إِلَيْهِ يَصْعَدُ الْكَلِمُ الطَّيِّبُ وَالْعَمَلُ الصَّالِحُ يَرْفَعُهُ. To Allah rises, up to Allah rises al-kalimu al-tayyib, the good speech. وَالْعَمَلُ الصَّالِحُ يَرْفَعُهُ, and good actions take it up, rise up with it. And al-kalimu al-tayyib, good speech, it's been explained in a hadith to mean shahadatu an la ilaha illallah, to testify that Allah is the only one worthy of worship. This is al-kalimu al-tayyib. In any case, so these actions of the creation, your good deeds, are risen up, are taken up, because the angels recorded and take up your deeds to Allah where it's recorded with him. And again, this is affirming His ulu, His highness. The next ayat here speak about the story of Musa alayhi salam with Fir'aun, where the Pharaoh said, يَا هَامَانُ ابْنِ لِي صَرْحًا لَعَلِّي أَبْلُغُ الْأَسْبَابَ أَسْبَابَ السَّمَاوَاتِ فَأَطَّلِعَ إِلَى إِلَهِ مُوسَى وَإِنِّي لَأَظُنُّهُ كَاذِبًا. Fir'aun said to Haman, who was his advisor, he was one of the advisors of the Pharaoh, he said, ابْنِ لِي صَرْحًا, build for me a tower, لَعَلِّي أَبْلُغُ الْأَسْبَابَ, so that I can perhaps climb up the stairs, the stairs of the heavens. It says أسباب السماوات, the stairs of the heavens. فَأَطَّلِعَ إِلَى إِلَهِ مُوسَى, so then I can see the Lord of Musa, which he claims is above the heavens. وَإِنِّي لَأَظُنُّهُ كَاذِبًا, and I think that Musa alayhi salam is lying in his claim that Allah is the creator and that he is above the heavens. So this ayah is showing that Musa alayhi salam affirmed that Allah was above the creation, and that Fir'aun, he wanted to build a tower to go up to the heavens so he can see and say, look, there's no creator here, and I'm the only creator. وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمُ الْأَعْلَى, he said that he is the greatest Lord. So this is showing that Musa alayhi salam affirmed the highness of Allah, which Fir'aun wanted to disprove. And this evidence is mentioned by many of the ulama of the Salaf. As-Sabuni mentions it in his Aqeedah and many others. And I believe also Abu Bakr Ismaili and Sharh I'tiqad Ahl al-Hadith and other than them, they all mention this as an evidence to show the highness of Allah. some of the groups start saying this is an evidence for you, it's an evidence against you. They say that the one who believed in the highness of Allah, the ulu of Allah, was Fir'aun, not Musa. That's why Fir'aun, because he was a mushabbih, according to them, he was an anthropomorphic. He wanted to go up to the heavens and see if Allah is there. We'll say no, because that doesn't show the purpose of the ayah. Why is Fir'aun trying to climb up? So that he can see if the Lord of Musa, not his Lord, he said Ilahi Musa, if the Lord of Musa is there. If Musa is, alayhi salam, is truthful in his claim that he is a prophet from Allah. So this hijaj, this argumentation from Fir'aun would make any sense if Musa alayhi salam didn't believe he was up there, if Allah was above the creation. Because then Fir'aun could just climb up and say, look, I looked and there was no creator. Then Musa alayhi salam would just say, I never said to you that Allah is above the creation. I said that he's la dakhil alim wa la kharija. He's never neither inside the creation nor outside. Then Fir'aun wouldn't have an argument. So this is showing that Musa alayhi salam did say that Allah was above all creation. And that is the belief of all of the prophets, and it's also something which is inherently in the Aqeedah of all Muslims. Even Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari mentions in his book Al-Ibana that he says that one of the proofs for the highness of Allah is that we see all Muslims and non-Muslims, even when they call upon Allah, they direct their gaze up and they raise their hands up to Allah. And this is showing that Allah is above the creation. Also in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ on in Yawm al-Hajj al-Akbar or Yawm al-Arafah, no, I think one of the 2 days, when the Prophet ﷺ was doing Hajj in his last year before he passed away, he said, he rose his finger up and he pointed to the sky and he said, Allahumma fashhad, Ya Allah, be a witness. This is again showing the highness of Allah. The next ayah says, أَمِنْتُم مَّن فِي السَّمَاءِ أَن يَخْسِفَ بِكُمُ الْأَرْضَ فَإِذَا هِيَ تَمُورُ أَمْ أَمِنْتُم مَّن فِي السَّمَاءِ أَن يُرْسِلَ عَلَيْكُمْ حَاصِبًا فَسَتَعْلَمُونَ كَيْفَ نَذِيرٌ. أَمِنْتُم مَّن فِي السَّمَاءِ, do you feel safe from the one who is in as-sama, in the sky? أَن يَخْسِفَ بِكُمُ الْأَرْضَ, that he may make the ground swallow you. فَإِذَا هِيَ تَمُورُ, when the earth is moving, not stable. It says, أَمِنْتُم مَّن فِي السَّمَاءِ, do you feel safe of the one who is in the sama? Does this mean Allah is in the sky, is in the heavens, contained within the heavens? No. By ijma', there's not a single group, except for some of the early Rafidah, some of the early Shia who had tajseem and tashbih, who likened Allah to the creation. They said that Allah is literally contained within the heavens. As for Ahlul Sunnah, we say Allah is fawq as-samawat, He's above all creation. Okay, so but this ayah doesn't say fis sama, in the sky. There's two responses to this. The first response is that the letter fi, this particle, can have the meaning of ala, of being above. So in that meaning, it would mean that amintum man ala sama, the one who is above the heavens. Like it says about Fir'aun, he said, وَلَوْ صَلِّبَنَّكُمْ فِي جُذُوعِ النَّخْلِ, and I will crucify you in the trunks of the trees. Obviously, they're not being crucified inside the trees, rather it's upon the trees. So here, the fa, the fi particle had the meaning of ala, fawq, above. And the second response is, as-sama doesn't necessarily mean the heavens or the sky, where you see clouds or where the angels live. Rather, as-sama means anything which is in the upper direction, anything which is above, because it comes from the word sumu, and the sumu يعني al-ulu, highness. Like it says in the Quran also, فَلْيَمْدُدْ بِسَبَبٍ إِلَى السَّمَاءِ ثُمَّ لْيَقْطَعْ فَلْيَنْظُرْ هَلْ يُذْهِبَنَّ كَيْدُهُ مَا يَغِيظُ. Then let them, مَنْ كَانَ يَظُنَّ أَنْ لَنْ يَنْصُرَهُ اللَّهُ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ, whoever thinks that Allah will not give success, not give victory to his prophet in this world and in the hereafter, then let him pull فَلْيَمْدُدْ بِسَبَبٍ, let him pull a rope إِلَى السَّمَاءِ, to the roof. Here السَّمَاء meant roof. ثُمَّ لْيَقْطَعْ, then let him cut him, and then فَلْيَنْظُرْ هَلْ يُذْهِبَنَّ كَيْدُهُ مَا يَغِيظُ, then let him see if the plotting which he plotted takes away his hatred and his anger. And obviously here, as-sama meant the roof, and didn't mean the sky. So as-sama in the language can mean anything which is above. Anything which is above. So Allah is above all creation and above the heavens. So this is not saying that Allah is contained within the creation. It's also said in the next ayah, أَمِنْتُم مَّن فِي السَّمَاءِ يُرْسِلَ عَلَيْكُمْ أَمْ أَمِنْتُم مَّن فِي السَّمَاءِ يُرْسِلَ عَلَيْكُمْ حَاصِبًا فَسَتَعْلَمُونَ كَيْفَ نَذِيرٌ. And or do you feel safe from the one who is fi sama, in the highness above the creation, أَيُرْسِلَ عَلَيْكُمْ حَاصِبًا, that he may send down upon you a punishment to destroy you. فَسَتَعْلَمُونَ كَيْفَ نَذِيرٌ, then you will see And you will know how was the warning. Again, what concerns us here is that it's affirming the ulu, the highness of Allah. And all of these ayat are affirming that meaning. The next one, next section mentions إثبات معية الله لخلقه, to affirm that Allah is with His creation. Affirming ma'iyah, that Allah is with the creation. And the ma'iyah of Allah, Allah is with His creation. There's ma'iyah ma'nawiyah and ma'iyah dhatiyah. There's Allah being with the creation in terms of meaning, and there's Allah being with the creation in terms of His dhat, His self. In terms of meaning, so it means that Allah, He has knowledge for things. He is ma'akum bi'ilmihi. Allah is with us with His knowledge. Allah knows what we do. And also Allah Azza wa Jalla is with us with His qudra, His ability, that He is capable of, holding us accountable at any moment. And also means that Allah is ma'al mu'mineen, He's with the believers in terms of an-nasr wa ta'yid, that He is supporting and giving victory to the believers. And this sort of ma'iyah, no group rejects it. And as for al-ma'iyah al-khassa, or al-ma'iyah dhatiyah, that Allah is with the creation in His self, that's not to say that Allah is within the creation. Rather, al-ma'iyah in the Arabic language, to say something is with something, it just means mujarrad al-iqtiran, to just be together. And we already mentioned when we spoke about the name al-batin, that we said Allah is al-batin laysa dunahu shay, that He is close to His creation. He is above the creation, but close to it. There's nothing which separates Allah from His creation, except that He is separate to it in His self. So, there's no contradiction between Allah's ulu, that He's above the creation, and that He is with the creation, because His withness does not mean entering into the creation. And for example, even in terms of normal speech, if you said, I am with Muhammad, and ma'a Muhammad, do you mean that you're inside Muhammad? No, you're not inside Muhammad, rather you are with it. You are with him, you are next to him. So Allah is with